Well, hello again. This is Brian Copeland talking. This is a very, very special segment that we're doing today. It's the beginning of a new show that I'm going to do from time to time where I will talk to people of note in politics, culture, entertainment. It's called Conversations with Copeland, and we'll talk for a couple of minutes. So, my inaugural guest is the congressman who represents California's 14th Congressional District, Eric Swalwell, who is with us. I appreciate you doing it. You're my first guest on this segment.
Hey,
So
man, what an honor. I didn't know I was the inaugural guest. Congratulations, and thanks for putting that privilege upon me.
oh, I appreciate you doing it. Let's start. I had something I was going to start with, and then you just reminded me of something we were chatting off the air. I just read something this morning. You were telling me you're reading a book about disinformation and about misinformation that you recommend called Nexus. You said the book is?
Nexus, Yuval Harari, he wrote the book *Sapiens*. So it's the history of information and civilization from the beginning of time through like the founding of democracies,
Mm-hmm.
founding of religious movements, and to today, and how one political movement, the conservative movement, looks at information as a means to achieving power, no regard to a means to finding the truth. And then more liberal-minded folks see information as a means to finding the truth. But the problem with that is that it's not defeating dis and misinformation, which is so pervasive today. And so, so many of the debates and dialogue and arguments that we have among each other is not even rooted in truth. It's just that, the truths have been cast, and it's so hard to uncast a falsity once it's put out there. And so that's the environment we're in today. And it's very challenging, and it makes it hard for us, to deliver results for the American people, I believe.
Well, what this made me think of when you were talking to me about this book is I just read this morning that Facebook, or I should say Meta, has announced that they are just about done dismantling the fact-checking apparatus for Facebook, Threads, and Instagram. And Zuckerberg says that this brings those platforms back to their roots, and that is the progression and expression of freedom of speech and free voices. People be able to say whatever it is that they want to say, and that if people want to fact check, they can take it upon themselves to go and fact check themselves. So how would you respond to that? Because I'll tell you personally, I find that dangerous. I think that's what's gotten us into a lot of this problem in the first place.
We've seen this with Russian disinformation on Facebook's platform in the 2016 election. We saw during COVID, the once in a generation pandemic, that worse outcomes occurred because of disinformation around, masking or the vaccine, or what having people take like a horse medicine. If you remember how crazy
Ivermectin, yeah.
How crazy it had gotten. Look, I'm always skeptical of anyone that wants to police, information. However, I also don't believe you have a right to put something out there that could, encourage or lead to violence. And so you have to balance that, but completely throwing your arms up and saying this is just going to be a free-for-all platform now, I don't think that's going to make us, more perfect as a union.
Mm-hmm. Well, that brings me to something that that you tweeted. I guess it was last week, and I'm paraphrasing here, so I don't have the exact tweet. But that the Republicans just voted to allow Trump to deport U.S. citizens to a foreign country. Now looking around, I couldn't find anything to verify it. In fact, one of the news sources I went to said that there is no definitive evidence from reliable sources confirming that such a vote explicitly occurred or that it specifically allowed for the deportation of U.S. citizens. Representative Crockett also tweeted out the same thing.
Yeah.
So what's the story? Can you give us some clarification?
Yeah. So we were voting on the president's immigration bill last week in the Judiciary Committee. Mm-hmm. And in the context of this, American citizens have been deported. just 2 weeks ago, a 4-year-old Louisiana child, American citizen, battling cancer, was deported with his mother. And so to prevent future Americans from being deported, also with the president who has said that he wants to send American citizens who are incarcerated also to El Salvador, Democrats offered an amendment in the Judiciary Committee that said no American citizen can be deported, period. Every Republican voted against that amendment. So no,
Everyone.
every single Republican voted against it. So the president cannot deport an American citizen. I feel strongly that the courts will prevent that from happening. We tried to have Republicans codify that in the president's immigration bill, which they refused to do. And so, plainly speaking, they voted to allow him to do it. Doesn't mean he can do it, and I want to make that clear. But they voted to allow him to do it by not banning it. And I just don't get, Brian, why my Republican colleagues would want to co-sign on the cruelty of deporting a 4-year-old child who's in a cancer battle, or signing on to the cruelty of mistakenly deporting a man from Maryland who you admit was mistakenly deported and sending him to a death camp in El Salvador. And when 9-0, the Supreme Court says you have to do something to get him back, throwing up your hands and saying, we're not going to do it. It's not my problem. That, to me, like, if we just allow the president to not follow, if we allow the president to disobey a lawful court order, who knows what the next lawful court order is that he'll disobey, and who it could affect. And so, to me, you have to stand up when he does that. Otherwise, you render the courts completely irrelevant.
Now, my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure if this is in the Constitution or if this is federal law, but that you can't deport an American citizen unless it's something like treason. Am I accurate in that? And if so,
Yes.
is that federal law or is that constitutional?
No, it is the Constitution. And Professor Raskin, who is the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, I believe it's under a theory of banishment, which occurred in like the 18th and 19th century. However, I believe it's the 8th Amendment to the Constitution, which prevents cruel and unusual punishment, would prohibit you from sending somebody, who is imprisoned in the United States to a foreign land. Again, like, to me, this is just insane, Brian. Like, we have prisons in the United States. We do not have a massive prison outbreak problem. People are not being sent to prison and then escaping the prison. So, to me, let's lock up the worst, most violent people in our country. I don't care.
For the safety of society.
Yeah, for the safety of society. But to want to spend money overseas to deport American citizens, now you're just that's what
boggles the mind.
Yeah, it does boggle the mind.
All right, you're a Bay Area guy like I am. What do you think? I just thought about this.
You talk Warriors?
My head laughs. No, I'm not talking Warriors. I'm talking Alcatraz. I'm talking Alcatraz. What do you think of this idea? First of all, is he just blowing smoke so to distract us from other things? Because that's what it looks like to me. It's not practical. It doesn't make any sense.
He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Alcatraz brings in $60 million a year for the federal government. And the reason it was shut down a long time ago is because it was dilapidated. And so we would spend well over 60 million just
in
to
today's dollars. Yeah.
And again, there's no shortage of federal prisons in America. If he wants to have a conversation about, as I said, locking up the most violent people, I'm all for that. I don't want them in our community. But this is just, it's so lizard brain of him. He watches a movie called The Rock, and he figures, well, like, it'll make a statement to put people there, and doesn't think through and can't show the math on why this would make sense.
Makes none at all. There was I believe it was yesterday in New York. One of your Republican colleagues had a town hall meeting that turned out like all of the Republican town hall meetings. The few that are being held
Yeah.
have turned out over the course of the last few months with constituents who are yelling and who are booing. And now, if you ask a question they don't like, they'll drag you out. I
Yeah.
mean, they'll have security drag you out. So they have been told not to give town hall meetings in person or to do it over Zoom and have the questions pre-screened and all of this. Is anything like this going on as far as Democratic town hall meetings held by those on the Democratic side of the aisle?
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I'm having a town hall tomorrow night in Livermore. I believe it's at 6 o'clock. I will actually, let me verify that for you. I want to make sure.
Well, actually, it'll be tonight because this will drop on Thursday. We'll drop tomorrow.
Okay. I'm having a town hall meeting tonight on Thursday, and that town hall meeting is at 6:30 at Livermore High School. And so I had one a couple months ago in Union City. I'm also doing double duty. I'm going to Republican districts where they will not hold town halls. So I was in Kevin Kiley's district in the Folsom area.
How was that? How was it to go into enemy territory? I mean, I hate to put it that way, but that's what it is.
I don't see the people as enemies. They see their enemy as the congressman who will not show up and have a town hall because Kiley refuses to do one. We had 700 people show up with 3 days notice. Many of them were veterans. Overwhelmingly, they were on Social Security and were concerned that that benefit was going to be reduced or dismantled. And just a month before, I was in Anna Paulina Luna's district in the Tampa area and did a town hall there because she wouldn't do a town hall. I did it with a former Republican member of Congress. Again, just under 1,000 people showed up. And so I'm going to continue to do this. If Republicans won't have the town hall, I'll go talk to their constituents.
Now, are they receptive? Are they receptive to
very, yes, overwhelmingly receptive and not monolithic. You had Democrats, Republicans, independents, people who'd never gone to a political event before, but mostly just very concerned that they were not safe physically, economically, or democratically.
Now the reason I ask that question is that you are one of the people that the MAGA side just despises. And there was an article in the Los Angeles Times, I believe, about the conditions that you and your family have to live under because of threats and all of the vitriol that's coming from that side. Can you take a minute without obviously giving away any secrets or anything that's put your family at a security risk, and just tell me what life is like for you now when you're home? You have what, two children now these days?
I have a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old.
Seven. God, when I met you, your wife was pregnant with the first one.
That's right.
Been how long?
Right.
Wow. So you got three. So you got 3 little kids. You have a wife and you have 3 little kids at home.
3 little kids, and I have a pretty big staff as well between my official team and the campaign team, and so those folks are also kind of I would say in the hot zone. So I worry about them because they sit in a fixed location with my name on the door, and they have been receptive to some of these threats as well. But every single day, whether it's through a direct message or a phone call or an email or a personal encounter, that there's a threat, and most often a death threat. And the aim, Brian, is to intimidate me and my staff and people like me, and it's not going to work. Like, I'm not going away. I'm not going to shrink. I'm not going to hide under the bed in this, fight for democracy. I'll report every threat. I'll protect my family and my staff. I tell my staff and my family, you have to take every threat at their word, and you'll be sorry if you don't. But if the aim is, to, have me go away, that's not going to work. It's costly. It's quite costly because you have to spend out of your campaign account to protect yourself. The Capitol
security.
Yeah, yes, and the Capitol police don't have the resources to help 99% of the members of Congress. They help the speaker and the minority leader, but everyone else is essentially in the day-to-day on their own. And so you essentially are rewarded because you can threaten a member of Congress and they will have to make a decision. Like, do I spend my resources to defend my campaign and my reelection, or do I spend my resources to defend myself, my staff, and my family? And almost everyone's going to choose themselves, their family, their staff. And so you are able to have them deplete their resources. And that's a very unfortunate part of this. And again, but I know the stakes. I know the arena, and I'm not going away. Someone recommended to me recently that if I dropped my lawsuit against the president for January 6th, where I've banded together with January 6 officers, that the president may not target me, and Kash Patel may take me off of his enemies list, which he put me at the very top of. But that's not who I am. And
Does it worry you? Does it ever worry you?
no,
The fact that
I,
you're at the top of the president's enemies list. I mean, first of all, it's so Nixonian that it exists, that there's an enemies
yeah,
list.
Kash Patel has a book, and he lists 100 people who are enemies of the state. And on top of the list, he says, of course, at the very top is Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff. And so I go into this eyes wide open. But to me, if I were to back down, then why would my constituents show up to the town square to protest? Because they look at me and they think, well, he's empowered by his position. And so if he's going to shrink, like what power do I have? So I'm all in.
So it never crosses your mind and go, you know what? I'm just, screw this. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna play with my kids, and I'm gonna take myself out of the line of fire. That never like even fleetingly crosses your mind.
I still, max out the opportunities to be with the kids. I have to do more probably to protect them and shield them. But the best thing I can do for them, I hope, is to model, citizenship. And to me, citizenship means, fighting for your country when you are in the arena and the stakes are the highest. And I'm not doing it alone. Like I see, you referenced her earlier, I see Jasmine Crockett, I see Robert Garcia, I see Maxwell Frost, I see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I see people stepping up, and these times, frankly, they have revealed to me like who should lead and who should leave. And now is a time for leadership.
A lot of true colors are coming out, definitely.
That's right.
One of my colleagues here at the Copeland's Corner channel asked me to ask you this question, and that is, and he said something that I've heard a lot of Democrats, a lot of disaffected Democrats, especially young Democrats. I'm talking Gen Z and so millennials are saying, and that is, when is the Democratic Party going to stop ignoring its base? They feel like the Democratic Party ignores its base, and that the party constantly goes into gunfights with the Republicans carrying knives.
Yep.
And it reminds me of like when Obama would try to come to some kind of a bipartisan agreement with the Republicans over budgets and things of that nature, and would hold his hand out to shake it, and they would try to cut it off every single time. So it was like, what's the point? So do you understand that sentiment that the party's just completely forgotten its base?
We're perceived as weak.
Yes.
Weak when we have power. And what I mean is that imagine if we fought as hard for popular policies that the American people are asking for, if we fought as hard for those as Republicans fight when they're in power for unpopular policies. Mm-hmm. And a mom in America, during the Biden administration, when we had the White House, the Senate, and the House, would say to you, it's great that the Democrats have all three of those, but my kid isn't more safe in school from a mass shooting because you all had all three of those and you didn't pass background checks, and you didn't pass an assault weapons ban. And I promise you, if the Republicans had all three as they do now, they will go to the mat for what they believe in, whether it's politically popular or not. And so imagine if we fought as hard for popular policies as they fight for unpopular policies. And to me, the next time we have all three, we can't let the filibuster get in the way of that, because to most Americans, the filibuster makes their kids more vulnerable at school to a school shooting. You know, the filibuster makes it harder for them to vote because we can't pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
The filibuster, makes it a hell of a lot harder to get rid of dirty maps and dirty money that have corrupted our elections. And so we can't be so weak with power when we achieve it again. And that's a pledge that I have, that I've learned that lesson.
Well, and here's the other thing. The thing that was very frustrating to me, and I flat out say, I've never hidden it, that I am a registered Democrat. And that is, we had under Biden, especially in the last year, an economy that economists worldwide were saying was the envy of the world. It was the best economy in the history of my lifetime since man walked on the moon, based on the numbers. Now, people didn't feel it. A lot of people, especially middle class, lower middle class people, did not feel the success of what those numbers said, but those were the facts. But why was it so? Why did the Democrats have such a hard time with messaging? Why wasn't that shouted from the mountaintops? Why was it allowed to be drowned out by these lies about how horrible we're doing and we're headed towards a depression, and crime, which has been falling for years, is on the rise, and there's a crime wave going on. Why is it that the Republicans were able to outshout the truth? That's really it in a nutshell.
When it comes to messaging, Democrats too often, we will lead from behind, meaning we will be told that the best message is whatever pops at the top of a poll snapshot that was taken this week. And so if you're not talking about the top three issues that popped on that snapshot in time poll, then you're, quote, off message. Republicans do the opposite. They will drive the message regardless of where the issues are on the poll, and then they will make their agenda the top issues ultimately, because they were committed to talking about those issues, socializing those issues, and taking action on those issues. And I think the best example to me, in taking your point about the economy, where we were told, oh, don't talk about how well the economy is doing, because in a recent poll, people said that they were feeling economically unstable. So we weren't even taking credit for the good things that we were doing, and we were just hiding under the bed and allowing them to define us. Going back to gun violence, which is, the issue I'm most passionate about, we are told that, well, that's not a top three issue in America, and you're going to really upset the NRA, who will spend a lot of money on this issue. And again, it's because of that, and it's like a chicken and the egg conundrum we find ourselves in. Well, what if we just made it a top three issue because we talked about it so much, we told the stories of the victims, and we gave solutions that could reduce gun violence and make us safer? You could do what Republicans do with issues, which is move it up the charts, and then everyone's going to be asking, why did that Republican not support background checks? Why did that one not support an assault weapon ban? But if we just lead from behind, we're just going to be chasing around the issue of the day rather than like, what are our values and what drives us? And I would rather be leading from the front.
Okay, so who makes those decisions? Because when we talk about gun violence, children in America have a greater chance of being killed in a school shooting than they do of getting killed in a car accident.
Yeah.
And that's just it's something I can't wrap my head around. Why? Excuse me. So who makes the decisions about what the agenda is, about what the issues are that the party's going to go forward with? Is it the DNC? Who is it?
Right now, it's very horizontal because there's no, leader from the Democratic Party in the White House, in the House, or the Senate. And so it's very horizontal. And that's why I think you're seeing, as I said, people reveal themselves as to whether they're up to leading or whether they should just be leaving. Mm-hmm. And you're seeing this Avengers model of my colleagues getting out there. And I think, frankly, from now until, the midterms, that's going to be okay, because that's going to, inspire people to go to these town halls in these Republican districts, to register to vote, to engage and hold Republicans who take away their health care in this upcoming budget vote, to hold them accountable. But then ideally, what happens is leader Hakeem Jeffries becomes Speaker Hakeem Jeffries. And now you have, a leader who can get you to the presidential election. And we're just 3 votes away from winning the majority. I know Hakeem and I were elected during the same class of 2012. He understands that Democrats have to govern in headlines, not fine print. That's his own phrase. Mm-hmm. And so I am hopeful that as Speaker, you see, more leadership when it comes to the message.
Okay, and this is the final question, and that is 2028. You going to run again? Have you decided?
I'm doing everything I can to. There will not be a free and fair election in 2028 if we lose the House. I don't see how that can happen. You need the check from Congress to have the free and fair electoral environment that you need to win in 2028. That's why I'm betting it all, doing everything I can to help us win the House, and then give me the problem that we're in the majority in 2027 to start the year, and I can think about like what would a free and fair electoral system provide me as far as options. But right now, we can cut our time in hell in half by winning the House.
Representative Eric Swalwell, representing California's 14th Congressional District. I know you're very, very busy.
No, thanks, man. Congratulations on the book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. My new book is out. All right. I will come back to see us again.
Thanks, Brian.